There is a pull you have been feeling and you do not have a name for it yet. Something beneath the surface of your ordinary days has been shifting, quietly, the way the ocean floor tilts before a massive tide, and no one on the shore notices until the waterline has already moved. In less than 48 hours, 3 separate cosmic events will converge on the same narrow window of sky. Not scattered across weeks, not separated by comfortable distance. 3 forces arriving together, stacking their weight on a single point, like 3 currents meeting in open water, where the result is not addition, it is amplification. What nobody is telling you is not that these events are coming. You already know that. What nobody is telling you is what happens when they overlap. Because the energy of 1 transit is a wave, 2 is a collision, but 3, landing within the same breath of the cosmos, creates what physics calls constructive interference. The crests align, the amplitude multiplies, and what reaches you is not 3 times stronger, it is something else entirely. A frequency most people will walk through without ever registering what just passed through them. Here is the question this video exists to answer. What is being rearranged inside you right now, in this exact window, that will quietly determine the shape of your next 12 months? Not what a surface reading could ever capture. What is actually happening in the space between Pisces and Aries, between the last exhale of 1 cosmic year and the first breath of another, and why this particular threshold carries more weight than any you have crossed in recent memory. On March the 17th, Mercury retrograde meets the North Node at 8 degrees of Pisces for the final time. On March the 18th, a new moon rises at 28 degrees of the same sign, closing an eclipse portal that has been open since the 3rd of this month. And beginning March the 17th, the Sun steps into an 11-day formation with Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. 3 events, 1 threshold, and the tide is already moving. Let me start with the first current. Mercury has been retrograde in Pisces since February the 26th. You have felt this. The fog, the misread messages, the plans that kept dissolving like salt in warm water. But Mercury retrograde in Pisces is not the story. The story is where Mercury has been sitting. For weeks now, this planet has been circling the same narrow corridor of the zodiac, hovering around 8 and 9 degrees of Pisces. And that corridor happens to be exactly where the North Node of the Moon is waiting. The North Node is not a planet. It is a mathematical point, an invisible hinge where the orbit of the Moon crosses the path of the Sun. In ancient Vedic astrology, they called it Rahu, the head of the dragon, the point of insatiable hunger that pulls you toward what your soul came here to become. And Mercury, the planet that governs how you think, how you speak, how you process every signal your life sends you, has been pacing back and forth across that dragon's mouth since the middle of February. On March the 17th, Mercury crosses the North Node for the 3rd and final time at 8 degrees and 58 minutes of Pisces. Let that land for a moment. 3 passes, not 1, not 2. The first pass happened on February the 11th, when Mercury was still moving forward. It delivered a whisper, a signal you may not have fully understood. The second pass came on March the 13th, but it was not Mercury that crossed this time. It was Mars, the planet of action and confrontation, charging through the same degree with a very different energy. Mars did not whisper. Mars struck the tuning fork. And now Mercury returns, retrograde, slower than it has moved all year, barely crawling across that 8th degree, and this time the message is not new. It is final. Whatever has been trying to reach you since February has made its last attempt. In the traditions of ancient India, there is a word for this kind of moment: Sandhya. It refers to the junction between 2 states of being, the moment where night has not yet ended, but day has already begun to breathe. Vedic priests considered Sandhya the most powerful time for any ritual, any prayer, any declaration of intent, because the veil between what was and what is becoming thins to almost nothing. You are standing inside a cosmic Sandhya right now. Pisces has not finished. Aries has not started. The old astrological year is exhaling its last breath, and the new one has not yet inhaled. And into this gap, Mercury delivers its final message on the North Node. The timing is not accidental, it is architectural. Now let me tell you what this has been doing to your body. Because the cosmos does not send messages only through events, it sends them through sensation. And if you have been paying attention to yourself over the past week, you may have noticed things you could not explain. A ringing in one ear, or a sudden pressure shift, as though you descended in altitude without moving. This is the nervous system recalibrating to a signal it does not yet have language for. Mercury rules the neural pathways. The North Node pulls toward the unfamiliar. When they meet in Pisces, the sign that governs the inner ear, the lymphatic rhythm, the boundary between waking and dreaming, the body registers the transit before the mind can name it. Some of you have been caught in a strange place between sleep and wakefulness. Not insomnia exactly, something more disorienting. You close your eyes and the mind begins to drift, but it does not fully let go. You surface again, not rested, not awake, suspended in a corridor that belongs to neither state. This is the hypnagogic threshold, and right now it is wider than usual. Pisces dissolves borders. Mercury retrograde scrambles the signal that tells your brain which side of consciousness you are standing on. If this has been happening to you, your system is not malfunctioning. It is adjusting to a frequency that only arrives when three currents converge. And there is a third marker, quieter, but often more unsettling than the others. A name has been returning. A face you had not thought of in years. A place you left behind long ago. It arrives without invitation, not as nostalgia, but as a summons, as though something unfinished has risen from the seabed and is floating toward the surface. Mercury on the North Node in Pisces reaches into the waters of your past and pulls forward the one thread that still connects to your future. You did not go searching for this memory, it came searching for you. And if you have been feeling a tightness in the throat, a knot that does not come from illness but from something unsaid, something that has been waiting years to be spoken, that is the fourth signal. Mercury governs the throat. Pisces fills it with water. The North Node demands that what needs to be said finally finds its way out. Not eventually. Not when conditions are perfect. Now, while the dragon's mouth is still open. Hold all four of those. The ringing, the threshold, the name, the knot. They are not separate symptoms. They are four faces of the same tide, and that tide is about to meet a second current that changes the entire landscape of this week. Because while Mercury has been delivering its last message, something else has been quietly gathering force beneath the surface. Jupiter stationed direct on March the 10th at 15 degrees and 5 minutes of Cancer, its exaltation degree, the degree where Jupiter's wisdom is not just present, but sovereign. After 4 months of retrograde silence, the largest planet in our solar system has resumed forward motion in the sign where its authority is considered strongest. Jupiter in Cancer does not shout, it swells. And a newly direct Jupiter at its exaltation degree acts like a harbor that has just opened its gates after a long season of closure. Whatever was held back now has permission to move. Opportunities that seemed frozen begin to thaw. Emotional clarity that was locked behind hesitation starts to flow. But here is what makes this week different from any ordinary Jupiter station. Jupiter at 15 degrees of Cancer is in an exact water trine with Mars at 15 degrees of Pisces. Water speaks to water, Cancer to Pisces, growth to action. This trine perfects on March the 21st, but its orb is already active, already pulling, and it means that the messages Mercury has been carrying across the North Node are not just messages. They are backed by the full gravitational weight of Jupiter's expansion and Mars's will. The whisper has a body now, the signal has force behind it, and this is only the first layer. Because on the 17th of March, the same day Mercury makes its final crossing, the Sun begins to weave itself into a formation that involves every outer planet in our solar system. Saturn in Aries, Neptune in Aries, Uranus in Taurus, Pluto in Aquarius. These four have been holding their own minor grand trine since April of last year, a slow and massive geometric alignment that astrologers consider the signature aspect of this entire decade. The Sun has not been part of that formation, until now. When it joins on March the 17th, it acts as a lens, focusing the diffuse energy of four outer planets into something personal, something felt, something that lands not in the news but in your chest. So here is the map of what you are standing inside. Mercury on the dragon's mouth, delivering a message that has taken 3 attempts to complete. Jupiter, freshly awake at its most powerful degree, opening a channel of expansion through the water signs. And the Sun, threading itself into a formation that connects every slow-moving giant in the sky to your individual life. These 3 currents are not parallel, they are converging, and the point where they meet is not a date on the calendar. It is the new moon on March the 18th, and what that lunation carries is something you will want to understand before it arrives. On March the 18th at 9:23 in the evening Eastern Time, the Sun and Moon meet at 28 degrees and 27 minutes of Pisces. This is the last new moon of the astrological year. Not just any lunation, the final one. The zodiac begins at 0 degrees of Aries and ends at 29 degrees of Pisces, and this new moon falls so close to that ending point that it is practically standing on the threshold with 1 foot already over the edge. Every new moon is a seed, but this seed is being planted in the last inch of soil before the ground changes entirely, and that soil is not empty. Sitting just across the border in the earliest degrees of Aries are Saturn and Neptune, still within the orb of their conjunction at 0 degrees and 45 minutes. This is the first time Saturn and Neptune have met in Aries in over 320 years. Saturn is structure, discipline, the bones of what is real. Neptune is vision, dissolution, the dream that has no edges. When they meet, the question they pose is not gentle. It is this: which of your dreams deserves a skeleton, and which ones have you been keeping alive long past the point where they stopped breathing? The new moon in the last degrees of Pisces lands directly next to that question, and it will not let you look away. There is something else this lunation does that most readings will not mention. It closes the eclipse portal. On March the 3rd, a total lunar eclipse in Virgo tore open a window of accelerated change. For 2 weeks that window has been open, and everything that has surfaced during this period, the confrontations, the sudden clarity, the things that fell apart without warning, all of it was the eclipse doing its work. Eclipse portals do not ask permission. They remove what is already loose and expose what was hidden behind it. The new moon on the 18th draws that window shut, not gently, firmly. What was meant to leave during this portal has left, or is leaving now. What remains on the other side of that closure is yours to build with. And at the same moment, the Sun forms a sextile to Uranus at 28 degrees of Taurus. A sextile is not a collision. It is an opening, a door you did not expect appearing in a wall you thought was solid. Uranus is the planet of sudden breaks, of lightning clarity, of the one insight that rearranges everything downstream. When it touches the new moon through this sextile, it means that whatever seed you plant in these hours has the potential to surprise even you. Not because you planned it, but because something larger is steering the current, and your only task is to stay in the water. Now pull back and see the full picture. 3 threads arriving at the same point, like the warp and the weft in the shuttle of a loom, all crossing at a single knot. Mercury on the North Node, delivering the final draft of a message your soul has been trying to read since February. The new moon at the edge of Pisces, closing a portal and planting a seed in the same breath. And the Sun, activating a formation of outer planets that has been shaping this decade from the background. These 3 do not simply coexist, they interlock, and where they interlock is the strongest point in the entire weave. In the language of textiles, the place where 3 threads cross is the point that holds the fabric together when everything else comes under tension. That is where you are standing. There is a practice I want you to carry through the next 4 days. It is not symbolic. It is precise. Each day is tied to a specific transit, and each action is calibrated to what that transit opens. Day 1 is March the 17th, the day Mercury crosses the North Node for the last time. Before you sleep, find a place in your home where you can sit in silence for 3 minutes. Not meditation. Simpler than that. Close your eyes and ask one question inward. What has been trying to reach me that I have not yet allowed myself to hear? Do not force an answer. The answer may come as a word, a sensation, a memory, a face. Whatever arrives first, trust it. When you open your eyes, speak it aloud. Just once. The throat has been holding something, and Mercury on the north node is asking you to release the knot before the dragon's mouth closes. Day 2 is March the 18th, the night of the new moon. Step outside after dark. You will not see the moon. That is the point. A new moon is invisible because it sits between the Earth and the Sun, its lit face turned entirely away from us. Stand in that darkness for 2 minutes and feel what it is like to be at the very end of a cycle that began 12 months ago. Do not name what is ending. Do not yet name what is beginning. The space between the exhale and the inhale, the sandhya, is where the deepest intention takes root. After those 2 minutes, go inside and write one sentence that begins with the words, I am ready. Not I hope, not I wish. I am ready. Keep that sentence where you will find it on the morning of the 20th. Day 3 is March the 19th. This is the day of stillness. Mercury is barely moving, preparing to station direct the following morning. Match its rhythm. Do not initiate any conversation about the future. Do not make plans. Do not declare intentions to anyone. Let the water settle. A tide that has been pulling for weeks needs 1 day of slack before it turns. Give it that day. If a name or a memory surfaces again, let it float. Do not push it down and do not chase it. Simply notice where in your body you feel it and let it rest there. Day 4 is March the 20th. The sun crosses into Aries at 10:46 in the morning Eastern Time. The new astrological year begins. Mercury stations direct at 8 degrees and 30 minutes of Pisces, and for the first time since late February, every planet in the solar system is moving forward. Every single one. Not Mercury lagging behind, not Jupiter still finding its footing. All of them aligned in the same direction, pulling the same way, for the first time in months. This will not happen again until May the 6th. You are entering a corridor where nothing is retrograde, nothing is reversed, nothing is pulling you backward. The current runs in one direction only, and it runs fast. On the morning of the 20th, find the sentence you wrote on the night of the new moon. Read it once. If it still holds true in the light of a new season, carry it forward. If it is shifted, rewrite it. Then do one physical thing that moves you toward its meaning before the day ends. Not a grand gesture, one step, a message sent, a boundary named, a decision spoken aloud to another human being. The equinox does not reward contemplation, it rewards motion. The tide has turned, and what you set in motion during these 4 days will be carried by a current that does not slow down until early May. What you have just been given is not a forecast. It is a map drawn during a window that opens once a year at the exact seam between endings and beginnings. And this year that seam is wider, heavier, and more charged than it has been in over a decade. 3 events converging on the same 48 hours. Mercury's final crossing of the North Node, a new moon planting its seed at the very edge of the zodiac, and the Sun joining a formation that connects your personal life to the slow machinery of planets that shape generations. The tide is not coming, the tide is here, and what it carries to shore when the water reaches its highest point is not something you receive, it is something you become. The majority of those alive this week will experience it as ordinary. They will scroll past the date. They will sleep through the new moon. They will feel the ringing and blame it on fatigue. Notice the name returning and push it under again. The tide will rise and recede, and they will never know it touched them. But you stayed. Something in you recognized the pull before you had a word for it, and that recognition is itself the proof that the frequency has already reached you. After years of tracing these currents, one thing has become clear. The cosmos does not reward the ones who understand the most. It rewards the ones who move when the water moves. And the window you are standing inside right now, this sandhya between 1 year and the next, does not stay open. It narrows. It closes. And when it does, the tide sets a new shoreline whether you are ready or not. So do not let this be information. Let it be a turning point. The chart you just heard was not assembled quickly. Every degree was traced, every crossing verified, every thread followed to its origin before it was woven into what reached you tonight. If this map found the shore it was meant to find, let it be known. One mark from you pushes this current further than I can carry it alone, and somewhere tonight, someone whose tide has gone silent needs to hear that the water is still moving. Right below the one thing that surfaced when Mercury crossed the dragon's mouth, not the version you have rehearsed for years, the one that changed your breathing when it arrived uninvited. Your words become a strand in this weave, and the next person who reads them may finally trust what has been rising in their own chest. Subscribe and turn on the bell. The tide does not pause between cycles. The sky is already pulling the next current into position, and when that wave arrives, you will want to be close enough to feel it first. The universe has spoken. What comes next is in your hands.